Hello, a very good evening. 3 minutes past 8 on LBC. Let me start this hour with two cliches. We get the politicians we deserve. If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Now, no one can say that paying someone £81,000 a year is peanuts, but there should be a debate, I think, about how our politicians are remunerated. It's been an ongoing discussion, really, in my entire adult life. There was a time when MPs weren't paid anything at all, and there are some people, unbelievably, who still think that they shouldn't be. Of course, the consequence of that would be that you'd only get rich people in politics because they would be the only ones who could afford to do it. What you've got now, though, I think, are too many MPs who would never be able to earn £81,000 in any other walk of life. And you have a lot of people put off from going into politics, at least partially, because they would have to take a pay cut. Now, look, I can already hear people howling at the radios saying, well, I mean, it's 81,000, that's way above the average wage. Some Labour MPs in the past, I don't know if any of them do it now, they have actually handed back some of their salary because they think they should survive on the average wage. I think Dave Nellist, when he was a Labour MP, he was expelled from the Labour Party for, I think, being part of Militant. Have I got that right? I think I have. Many, many, many years ago. He only took what was the average salary in the country. Now, the reason we're talking about this today is because the father of the House, Sir Peter Bottomley, who's been an MP, I think, on and off since the mid-1970s. He's changed seats. I think he won a by-election and then lost it, and then he's now MP in West Sussex. And he has made some comments about MPs struggling to get by and needing more pay. Now, he did say that he certainly doesn't suggest that should happen now. It should only be after the next election. But I'm not sure whether going into an election campaign saying we'll all get paid more is necessarily a good thing. But on the other hand, maybe you think that MPs are slightly underpaid, that if you think about it, £81,000 a year, which, as I say, for a lot of people listening, will seem an awful lot of money. But it's what a deputy head teacher in some schools, but not all, but some schools would be paid. GPs, a lot of GPs are paid more than that. I wonder whether you think that we need to make politics something that, a profession, that people who have done very well for themselves in whatever walk of life, and maybe they're running a local council, and I mean you can get paid £200,000 or £300,000 for running even a district council nowadays. If you are a hospital manager, you will be paid a six-figure sum. In Transport for London, there are, I think, 142 people who are paid more than £100,000 a year. So do you think that really, proportionately, MPs are underpaid, or do you think that this MP is off his rocker on the very day that universal credit has been cut by £20 a week for the poorest in society? To raise this now, isn't this just completely crass? 0345 6060 973. Well, Sir Peter Bottomley spoke to Nick Ferrari earlier and defended his remarks.
In the debate in the House of Commons in the 1970s, about 1977, Enoch Powell interrupted me. But I was making the point that you can have a parliament full of church mice, and you have a parliament full of the independently wealthy, but what about the people in the middle? What about the person who's deputy head of a large comprehensive school? What about the person who's been a Royal Naval captain? What about the person who may be your solicitor, your accountant? These are the people from whom you pick governments, official oppositions, alternative governments, and why exclude the middle? He said, wasn't I aware there are more candidates than there were places, and didn't this suggest that the terms were rather excessive? So the point was put back to him, instead of having any pay at all, why don't you have a tax of, say, £10,000 a year on being an MP? And if there are then exactly 650 candidates, would the right honourable gentleman be satisfied with the calibre of his colleagues? He remained in his place, muttering into his waistcoat the impertinence of those who hadn't been in Parliament very long. But I now have been in Parliament very long, and I can afford to do it for free. I don't. I take most of my pay. I give a lot of it, some of it away. Not that I talk about that very much in public. But the real point is, do you want to say that the Deputy General Secretary of the National Nurses Union, the College of Nursing, should be able to come to Parliament without a major sacrifice? Should your GP be able to switch to Parliament for a Parliament or two without a major sacrifice? And the answer, in my view, clearly is yes. Should there be a pay increase now? The answer is no. And I'm on the record repeatedly saying, never change the pay of MPs in between elections. Set the pay at a general election and stick to that until you have another general election.
So how convinced are you by that? 0345 6060 973. Someone says on a text, why is Iain Dale calling low-paid people monkeys? It's racist. Oh, do sod off. I mean, it's what a ridiculous comment. It's a well-known phrase. If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Joseph Silke joins us, communications manager at the centre-right think tank Bright Blue. Joseph, very good evening. What's your view on Sir Peter's comments? Because there is a certain logic to what he says, even if it makes it it sounds a little bit uncomfortable in the current circumstances.
Yes, it's frustrating because I'm broadly sympathetic to some of what Sir Peter has said. I think it's good for MPs to be well paid. We want to attract the very best candidates without them having to take that massive pay cut. As you said, all of councillors, other civil servants are paid more. But why he would bring this up now really beggars belief. It's the wrong time. We've just had the biggest post-war cut to social security with the removal of the uplift. There's a cost of living crisis from rising prices and tax hikes. And also while we have a public sector pay freeze minus the NHS. So really, this is not the right time.
When is the right time, though?
I think, to be honest, when we're not in the middle of an economic crisis, and that really has been building. I mean, it was striking because I was at the Conservative conference, and this fits with the broader theme of the Tories risking looking out of touch with the optimistic speech from the Prime Minister not quite matching the challenges that many people are facing at the moment.
I would submit to you there is never a right time to discuss MPs' pay. And if you go back, I remember this coming up when I worked in Parliament in the mid-1980s under Margaret Thatcher. And of course, what happened then was because no one was willing to grasp the nettle, even though she had a massive parliamentary majority and could easily have done it. They put a lot of it on expenses and just encouraged people to claim things on expenses. And we all know what happened after that.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And the reforms that were introduced in the wake of the expenses scandal definitely have kind of helped to take some of it out of it. But I agree that it's a very difficult topic. I think it's something slightly to do with the British psyche. We sort of like our politicians to live in shacks, really, to some extent. But I do think we have to be honest. We do have to have a proper national conversation about this, however challenging it might be, because if we want to have good politicians, we need to pay them well. And that needs to be accepted and talked about.
Well, I think you're absolutely right on that. And the point that Sir Peter made there about people from various professions having to take a big salary cut if they entered politics. I mean, look, there will be some people who say, well, it's public service, and so therefore people should make a sacrifice. Well, fair enough. But if you're going to have your salary halved, that would be a pretty big decision to make. And it's not just you making that decision, because it has an effect on your family as well. Joseph, thank you. That's Joseph Silke from Bright Blue.